Yo, what's good, world? It's your boy Hafiz.
Chris, the star of the show, baby.
Yes. And welcome to the Roommates, a worldwide community of individuals united on the values of becoming, holistic health, kindness, togetherness, and a thirst for knowledge.
Also
known as
best hour of your week,
where you are entertained like a stand-up,
educated like a TED Talk,
and enlightened like a sermon.
What's going on, player?
Yo. What's up, man?
I'm good.
You got the
Hey, man, listen, man.
You got the shades on today. I see you trying to hurt him.
Hey, man, listen. God's been good.
Okay.
All right.
See, that Patreon money started to kick in.
Shipping and handing it, man. Nah, you childish, bro.
But you know what, Chris?
What's up?
As you know, people have been sending us a lot of messages. Well, actually, it's not a lot of people. I want to clarify.
Okay.
It's like a small minority.
Yes.
And are you the kind of person, if 100 people tell you something nice and then one person tell you something bad, you think about something bad?
I always look at the bad comments.
Yeah.
I don't like Chris's voice. But all right. Well, it's ridiculous out here.
But yeah, I'm the same way. So one of the most reoccurring negative comments is our lack of representation on the show.
Oh, yes.
Of season 3, to clarify. Season 1, it was all women.
It was all women, basically.
Yeah. And so, man, for a long time, you and I have been working really hard to find some really amazing women.
We have.
And shout out to Stefan Labossiere, however you say, always butcher it. Make sure you get his new book, Find Love After Heartbreak.
Yes.
Because I asked him, what are some amazing women in the city? And he told me about our new roommate who's coming on the show. And listen, I went on YouTube to look her up.
Yes, you did.
And I saw a video. And if I'm telling you, preaching to the choir, I was so in love with this video. I put it in the group chat.
Yes, you did.
I put it in the group chat.
Yes,
and I said, we are going to have her on the show.
Yeah, it was no question. It was already booked, planned, and in motion.
So after a couple of months, we finally have her on the show. And I'm really, really excited to bring in the one, the only Rebecca Lynn Pope. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I think I'm blushing.
They're
talking about me. I'm like, hey, talking about me.
So, Rebecca, we know who you are. So,
Yes.
for our audience who don't know who you are, can you give us a bit of an elevator pitch synopsis about who you are, what you do, and all that jazz?
Wow. So I'm a former matchmaker. That's where a lot of people refer to me when they think about some of my videos, especially around dating and love and the whole world of relationships, right? So I'm a former matchmaker. I became more involved in healing, emotional and spiritual healing. That came directly out of dating and love coaching and matchmaking because people are jacked up.
Big facts.
And so I over the years evolved into healing and spiritual work and began to help people deal with their deeper issues. And then what do you know? People fall in love and get married and have really great relationships when the inner stuff starts getting worked out. So it was kind of an evolution, but I'm really well known for the information and the videos I do around love and women relationships, things like that. But I work with people kind of on more of that emotional and spiritual level.
Awesome. And you said you were a former matchmaker.
Former matchmaker.
So what was that like?
It sucked. Wow. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I hated it. For anyone who is genuine, and I'm not throwing matchmakers under the bus. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I love some of people I love the most are matchmakers. Love them. But the industry itself is one that you very quickly learn that people who hire matchmakers are looking for that dream situation. And they're trying to fulfill the list of requirements they're looking for. And so they feel that in paying a matchmaker, this is what they're buying. It almost felt like I'm supposed to be making men in a lab somewhere, like creating these perfect specimens, right? And I'm like, what you're asking for doesn't exist. And if it did,
we'll get to that.
If it did exist, he wouldn't want you, and
Jesus. No.
And it's like, and vice versa. My male clients were the same way. It was like, it was ridiculous. And it was like, dude, but yet you're saying women are gold diggers, but then you want a woman who's so far out of your league that the only reason she'd be with you is because of your money. But then women are gold diggers. So it's just this vicious cycle I saw kind of in the human psyche, that it was just like some things are really flawed in our modern society of how people approach dating and their expectations around. And the video that I did that you guys were referring to is specifically, I had a nightmare client. A nightmare. There was about 2 or 3 of them, but one in particular was a nightmare. And I just was like, these women are crazy.
Well, you want to? Can you repeat that? I'm not sure everybody heard that.
I mean, and I think when I did that video, it was kind of a rant, you guys, because I mean, it was that bad of an experience for me. And it was literally that flip side. I think I got to see the side of some women that maybe only men get to see when a woman kind of loses it, you know, and goes off, or you see that other side and the image, the pretty, sweet, you know, and I'm looking at these women like, what happened? Who are you? I thought you were just this wonderful, sweet, loving, and kind, and I couldn't understand why you were single. Yeah. And now I'm like,
I get it.
Like, you know, and so matchmaking, I was very naive going in. I say this all the time, guys. Really, really big-hearted, good-hearted women hang out with other really big-hearted, good-hearted women. And a lot of the time we have a hard time understanding that when men are talking about how bitchy women can be, or how conniving or manipulative or shallow or superficial, good women feel very offended by that, because we're like, what are you talking about? I'm a good woman, and I do my best, and I'm honest, and you know, and they're out here genuine, and they don't operate that way. Yeah. But there's a whole other demographic of women that definitely operate that way, and so good women kind of have a hard time realizing that, because they don't really understand typically, because good women run in packs, just like barracudas do, like literally. So I think, you know, there's some disconnect when, you know, really good-hearted, spiritually grounded women and good-hearted, spiritually grounded men are trying to communicate. Both of them have had really bad experiences with that opposite demographic. That's I know that was long-winded.
No, that's amazing. Where would you like to start?
I think I would like to start with, like, if you know you have a client like that, male or female, like, how do you, like, dig into that? Like, is it starting with the healing process, or like? That's
how I started my healing programs. That's how I started doing healing courses, because I realized I couldn't just, I tried initially to take these people at face value and say, okay, their intentions are good. They're really wanting a wife or a husband. And I'm from the Midwest. I'm down to earth.
Which city?
Ohio.
Oh, you're okay.
Born in Columbus, Ohio. I'm down to earth. My values are very grounded, right? Very well balanced. And my father was a pastor. You know, you come from the church, you know. So one of the things I realized very quickly was that people weren't really looking for a wife or a husband. Like I say, they were looking for this list of qualifications that had to do more with ego and validation. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about true connection. Yeah, they think that's what it is, but deep down, that's not what a lot of people are really looking for.
So can you break down what was the female list and what was the male list?
The female list would be like a laundry list of things that came down to height, income. Of course, nobody wants to seem shallow, so they don't want to come right out and talk about what kind of car you drive, what part of town do you live in, what do you do for a living, but if you kind of take it in its entirety, it is pretty shallow in some ways, right? Because it's like it's so specific to the point that, you know, women in their list, they don't realize you're talking about like not even 1% of the male population.
How long we been saying this?
Right.
We've been saying this for a while.
And I tend to be kind of like, I'm a real factual type of person. You know, I like stats. I like research. I like real, what's real, not imagined. And so by the time I would listen to women, it was like, where am I going to find these dudes? And then she's maybe a solid 6. And you're talking about a man who's a 10 plus, right? Top shelf dude. And he can date a supermodel, right? Because that's going to be his ideal, is going to be this at some level, whatever his flavor of supermodel is, right? Vixen, whatever, that's going to be his flavor. Yeah. And so it's kind of like women, I think a lot of the time don't realize their expectations are so ridiculous just because the average guy, just your average guy, is not 80% of those things. And so I put a lot of those stats in my book, my Love and Dating book. I put a lot of the stats around height, income, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, that by the time you know, if a woman, and part of it is also that women have just taken so many strides professionally and from an education perspective, that in some ways they're running circles around men when it comes to income and education. And research shows that men and women tend to date on their level. They want to date someone who looks compatible to them even on paper. Yeah. So if you've got a woman with a master's degree or a doctorate, she wants to marry someone who's a doctorate, master's, or a doctorate. And so a lot has changed in the 21st century, right? So this is where we see the disconnect. But a man's list is quite different than a woman's list. A man's list men haven't really changed that much. It's women who have changed. A man's basic needs around his emotional needs being met and needing to feel like the man, in other words, how a woman makes him feel is like so high up on that list. And then sexual attraction. I mean, literally, it's, if a man is sexually attracted to a woman, there's practically almost nothing he won't do for that woman. Yeah. And I had men, a lot of men I would meet over the years. What I learned about men was that I would have men I knew, architects, lawyers, and they're dating the serial college student. She didn't even have an income, right? She lives with 3 other girls. They're dating the bank tellers. They're dating the waitress. You know what I mean? And I would be like, you're making all this money. You're an architect. They don't care if she's sexy, if she's pretty, if they have good conversation, and she makes them feel good. They're like, winning, I'm winning, you know, if they like the body and they, and she's pleasant to be around and cool and a little challenging, a little spicy, maybe.
How she's like spicy.
Yeah, I like a little bit of spicy, a little bit of edge, not the drama, but that little bit of edge. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. Yeah. But women, that laundry list just rolls out, right? Men, and they don't understand. Men don't have that. It's not as complicated for men, and men get upset when I say men are simple, and it's like I don't even say anything to people on my YouTube when men are saying we're not simple. You make it sound like we're Neanderthals.
We are simple,
but men simple. Are so
very
much
binary.
More simple than women. Women, it's much more complicated, and so as women continue to go up, 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 their standards and expectations go up, up, up. So when I did that video, it was really about women. It was a very high-end woman, right? Because those are the women who are going to be hiring matchmakers. You're talking about that lawyer or that doctor or that woman who's got those degrees, that money, and all of that drives ego. So in her mind, she deserves this certain caliber of a man, but then they'll continue to get their heart broken because they keep trying to make it work with those types of men that they feel are a match, but those men don't really want them.
Well, you mind? So, thank you for sharing all that. And if you guys haven't watched the video, please go to her YouTube page.
Now, wait. One thing I have to say, because women get mad at me when I don't give the other side of this, right? Okay. Is that because men are so physically driven, sex drive driven, Men are jacked up because if they get one or two experiences with a really, really beautiful woman, this now becomes their standard. They will begin to overlook a woman who's maybe a little bit more average looking, who could be perfect for him.
Of
right?
course.
But he develops this appetite for these gorgeous women who, and back to what I say, maybe it's his money that's giving him access to those women. It could be whatever, power, whatever. But at the end of the day, men do the same thing, even with their short list, right? They still get jacked up because now he's an average dude, but he wants to be with freaking, I don't know, who's the vixen models.
Lori Harvey, I just said it.
Who?
No?
I wouldn't go there, but it's
Who
your
did
list.
he say?
He said Steve Harvey's daughter.
Oh, Steve Harvey's daughter.
She's popping right now.
Oh, is she? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, they want that girl who looks like a freaking supermodel, but yet you're looking like Clump.
Yeah.
You know, and people are like, Rebecca, that's so mean. You're judging people and how they look. No, we live in a society that judges by how people look, right? I mean, you can't get away from the fact that attraction is the very real first obstacle to people connecting.
Exactly. No, and let me go ahead and share a little bit. But I loved your video. I absolutely loved it because one of the things that I saw from your video is that it clarified for a lot of women the differences between male and female sexual attraction. Yes. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I was a kid, that was something I struggled with. Like, I thought that women liked men the way men liked women, right? And then I started realizing that our desires are different. You can argue whether that's biological, evolutionary, whatever you can argue. It's just different. It's just real. And so what I found out is a lot of women would define, like they would judge themselves the way they would judge a man. Right? So they will say, well, I have a car, I have a house, I have A, B, C, I have these things. Why don't you want me? Yes. And I'm like, well, that's nice. Right. But in reality, for male sexual attraction, those things are not swinging the pendulum in the way the attraction will go to. And I love the point that you brought up about the bank teller. Guys going after the bank tellers and waitresses, because we made a point, Chris said it a couple episodes ago, that if you have an average-looking woman who was a seven-figure lawyer, right? And then you had a really beautiful woman who was maybe the accounting clerk, at that law firm, making $35,000, $40,000. That's right. It's not even a question which one most guys are.
They're going for the clerk 9 times out of 10. Oh, God. And women don't get that, especially driven alpha female type women. They don't get it. And
they don't get it. And it's because they keep on thinking that if there was a man who was a lawyer and an account clerk, I would obviously choose. And I'm like, he's not the same way. Like the wiring is so different.
Like and men, I mean, one of the things so many of my clients would be like, I said, what do you talk about on dates? What is your conversation about? And they're typically will lead with their business, their education, whatever it is they do professionally. They're trying to impress him with their accomplishments. And I said, sweetie, when you're doing that, he's probably just looking at your boobs, like zoning out, just kind of like looking at your, your breasts, your lips as your mouth is moving, and he's not even listening to what you're saying because he's out on the date with you just because you have beautiful teeth and beautiful smile and beautiful eyes. Yeah. And it's just the difference between how women and men are wired. And so I believe it's one of those things right now that has brought such a huge disconnect between women and men. Exactly. Because I tell women, if you're really, really wanting to just attract more men, go to the gym.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Just go to the gym. Like if you're really more concerned, like if that is a priority for you and you're not wanting to just kind of wait it out, I guess, or you want to really get out here and you want to date because you want to be married, work on your body. Work on your looks, get a makeover, right? Now that's really simple advice. I mean, because at the end of the day, getting another degree is not going to attract more men. Making more money is not going to attract more men. They don't even judge like that. And I had to even learn that in my own marriage, you guys. Like I was divorced. I've only been married 3 years. And so I'm coming in after being divorced for a long time. I'd been single for a long time. And we are these independent women, and you're used to taking care of everything, and I got it, and I'm good. And I had to come into my marriage and realize, I was like, wait a minute, he doesn't really care how much money I make. At the end of the day, he could care less. He fell in love with Rebecca, not the titles, money, any of that. And it was like, when I really got that for myself personally, and one of the reasons that I stopped matchmaking is when I met my husband, we started dating. I was still a matchmaker when we started dating.
So you matched yourself?
Right? I mean, one of the things that I realized was that most of my clients would have turned down a date with my husband.
And why is that so, Rebecca?
Because he did not meet that laundry list of requirements that these women had. And I'm not saying that's all women. It's not all women. But a lot of the time, it's a lot of women in different ways. It's different, you know, their lists vary, but they don't realize that they're being super picky with some of the things that are on those lists. So my husband is just, you know, he was a simple guy. You know, he's a pastor. He wasn't rich. You know, he's tall and cute, right? But he didn't come with 7 figures, you know, automatically. He didn't come, you know, he'd been divorced. You know, he already had children. Some of these things eliminate men off of women's list right off the bat, right? He didn't have a doctorate degree. He was just this simple guy, you know, but he has a heart for God. Like on our first date, no lie, y'all, I was like, oh, he ain't going nowhere.
Well, give me the formula then.
I mean, I was on the first date. I was like, he didn't know it yet, but I was like, oh, he
done.
We go together. Like he don't know it yet, but he ain't going nowhere. That I mean, I think that's kind of how dudes more are. You know how you just I hear men say, oh, there goes wifey. That's wifey right there. And they mean that. They would see a woman, they're like, that's how I was with my husband. I was like, I had dated and dated. When I met him, I was like, done. Done. Case closed. But I think a lot of the time, you know, when it hit me that most of the women I was working with would have never even accepted a date with my husband. That was a reality check, right? Because I'm seeing good man. I'm seeing a really, really great guy that would make a great partner, that we can grow together and we have so much in common and we have so much fun. But a lot of women that I was working with wouldn't have been able to see that. They would turn down dates with the people we'd match them with, the men. They would turn down, they wouldn't even go have a drink. They wouldn't even meet them for coffee. They would just take one look at a picture and be like, no. Where'd you find him? No. And I'm like, but he's 6'5" and he's a pilot. And I'm like, I give up. I literally was like, I give up, y'all. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is not working. This is not a viable business model, right? Because we're doing all this work to find all these great people and they wouldn't even meet them. So how can you know, or how can you, you know, say someone is not right for you and you haven't even met them? I just don't understand that psychology.
Do you think it's like the disconnect is more of women having too high of a laundry list, or men not being accomplished enough?
Look at you asking that.
I believe that the average man is much more. I think that women put men on too much of a pedestal. Now, I know, guys, hold on.
I ain't saying that.
Because what has happened, because we live in a patriarchal society where the laws and rules that have governed society for so long have been created by men, you guys have a set of expectations you put on yourself, right? And literally, you've done a really great job of convincing women that you guys are like Superman. You got it covered. You don't even have feelings. You know, I asked women, I said, do you believe that men have the same feelings that you have? Do you believe that men go through all the same feelings and range of emotions that you go through? And they're like, no, not really, not exactly. I'm like, do you believe that men deal with rejection or low self-esteem, or that some men have been abused in situations where their kindness has been taken for weakness and they've been taken advantage of? How do you think that affects them? Because if if we know, women are so verbal, we're so vocal, right? So we know how women feel about these things because they're so verbal.
Yeah.
Men go through the exact same things, but they're not allowed to have those feelings. They're not allowed to be human because society says men are like this, and a real man has got to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So you guys are at this huge disadvantage because it's like you've created an expectation that women have of men. I'm guilty of it. I would look at my husband like he's got it all together. He's got it all figured out. And when my husband and I started getting really transparent and vulnerable with each other in our marriage, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You mean you cry? You
Yeah.
mean you're struggling with things sometimes? Or you know, and I'm like, it was an eye-opener, guys. I was like, men are just human, just like women. And there's no S on your chest. There's no, you're just, you guys are Academy Award-winning actors. Men are trained to, from the time they're young, to suck it up, never cry, right? I mean, hide your truest emotions, your deepest, truest emotions you do not share. Typically, the only time men are very, get vulnerable or even show their truest feelings or thoughts is with a woman. Not always a love interest, a mother, a sister, right? An aunt. Then the love of their life they will become vulnerable with. But beyond that, it's like, so women drank the Kool-Aid and believe that men have it all. You're supposed to be like this. You're supposed to be Superman. Yeah. You're supposed to make everything better. You're supposed to solve my problems. Because that's kind of what we've been sold on since we were little girls, is that it's the knight in shining armor, right? It's the fairy tale and the guy. And in the meantime, you guys are just like us. You're just trying to figure things out, know? And so to answer Chris's question, it's twofold, right? It's the flip side of the coin. Do women have too high of expectations, or have we been programmed to have those expectations, and men continue along that line because they bolster that, right? By how you guys act and how you guys handle things. So both is my answer. Women have too high of expectations, but men also are just not exactly who we think they are. But this is how these situations develop, right? Where she's going to end up getting her feelings hurt because she didn't listen to what you said. And when you said, I'm not really looking for anything serious right now, men mean that. Yeah. When they say, if that comes out of a man's mouth, he means it. Women kind of ignore that communication, right? They'll say, well, he led me on or he was lying. No, think back on some of the things he said. And he was saying it, but he's trying to also gauge it to where you don't cut him off. A woman won't just stop dealing with you because you come right out and she thinks you're just really not available. So men are always kind of walking this thin line, trying to monitor and manage women's emotions. But at the end of the day, time. Do not overpromise. A really good friend of mine who used to be a big time player, he told me that less is more. Stop. He said where people mess up is talking too much, sharing too much, talking too much, overpromising, giving too much access, too many details. In other words, a lot of the time men and women are guilty of that, of kind of like sharing stuff that's not pertinent. If you know that you're dating 3 people, right, and there's a couple people you're interested in, you're kind of vetting and qualifying, don't be talking about future plans with someone when you know you're dating someone else that it could develop into something with her, but you really like her too, and you're still in that process of vetting and qualifying. Don't be talking about taking vacations together. Don't talk about anything futuristic. Women take that as he's really planning his life with me or planning things with me. They learn that from these magazine articles, right? Like he's planning. He talks about our future together. No, I just wanted to go to Cabo, but I didn't want to go alone. But they don't see it that way, right? So it really comes down to keeping it light and casual and just having fun, which means that it's not sexual, because the minute I tell people all the time, I'll have women be like, oh, we're just friends. I'm like, no, y'all aren't just friends because you're screwing.
Yeah.
You're screwing.
So how there's nothing more intimate than sex. So how in the world is this just your friend, but you guys are having sex? Those two don't go together, right?
Yeah.
If you guys are messing around, and that's the number one thing with men, this is where it was so hard for you guys because you're so real talk. I'm going to have a real transparent moment for a second. Okay. So I'm like premenopausal. I hit my 40s and like my hormones started going crazy and I started going to this doctor. She gave me these natural, like, testosterone supplement, like to boost my testosterone because my testosterone level was too low. That's what was off with me, which is not normal, but it was off. This testosterone hit me, y'all. Y'all ain't hearing me, okay?
Yeah, welcome to our life. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, boom.
I was like,
It's like,
I'm like, this is, I mean,
where can I get it next?
and obviously my levels were this was not on a man's level. Like an average man has 10 to 20 times the amount of testosterone in their bloodstream than a woman.
Yeah.
So the level I was at was just kind of like extra healthy woman. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Imagine me back in my 20s, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was like,
yeah, I'm on a ride right now.
I mean, my husband was looking like a whole snack. Okay, I'm looking at him cleaning. I'm looking at him bending over. I mean, I'm looking at him like I will jump you right now. Like, where are the kids at? Right? Yeah. And I'm like, this is how men feel. But 10 to 20 times that. Yeah. And I told my girlfriends, I was like, y'all, I have a whole different level of sympathy for men right now at this point. Because I would like be scrolling across Facebook and I would see some fine dude and I'd be like, ooh. And I was like, what are you doing, Rebecca? Like, what is wrong with you? You know, like you're literally like super sexually charged up, right? Yeah. And so what's difficult with you guys is what attracts you to someone is going to be the physical to even initially talk to them. But then the one thing that gets you in trouble is that you're sexually attracted to them and you want to have sex. Mm-hmm. And trying to be casual and not lead someone on and not get too deep into something, that doesn't go together, right? So the very thing you're driven to do, driven biologically, I don't care what your faith is, I don't care who you are, biologically, men are driven to have sex. And that little testosterone test I'm telling you guys about right now, driven. Yeah. It is part of your makeup. God made you this way, right? And there's just no way around it. And so you guys have it's rough. If you're really not wanting to go there, this is why you have men that will be sleeping with one woman, but they're dating other women, but they keep that one woman they're sleeping with. And women don't understand that. Like, wait, so one of the things I've learned over time is that a lot of the time men will still be sleeping with somebody all the way up while they're dating someone they're very serious with. But if they're abstinent, and the women who are celibate and abstinent don't want to hear that, right? Because that is like, what's wrong with these men? They're not built like us. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes women get the knowledge that, oh, he was still sleeping with his ex or still sleeping with someone all the way up till we got engaged this is really common, you guys. Mm-hmm. And it's the kind of stuff that breaks women's hearts because they're like, how could he love me? How could we be, ready to be getting married? And he was still that drive, and I look at any man that abstains based on my feelings from when I was hopped up on testosterone. Okay. Any man that abstains, I feel like you're on a whole nother level. You're just on a whole nother level. There's going to have to be spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you're going to have to be so deeply committed to that thing. You know what I'm saying? It's going to have to be, it's spiritual. Yeah. It's going to have to come from something real deep to overcome that natural drive that God puts in you to have sex. So that's why there's just not a whole lot of men that are abstinent, period.
Yeah. No, I think what you keep on going back to that I think is just so powerful is to be able to understand the uniquenesses of each gender. I feel like that's an education that a lot of people really, really lack, especially because you have like romance novels and movies and TV shows that create these false caricatures of these individuals in which these are not who they really are in real life.
No.
So for let's say a young woman right now, and she says, okay, my expectations might be a little unrealistic. Like, what would you say are some healthy, realistic expectations that she should have for men in general?
I would say that women need to date a little bit more like men. Women need to date a little bit more like men. Lead a little bit more towards being attracted to someone initially, right? Because when you're married or when you're in a committed relationship, you are going to hit hurdles. You're going to go through really difficult times. And if you're not really attracted to your partner, I'm talking about on a sexual level, a physical level, if you're not attracted to them, you'll want to walk away. But that sexual physical element is so crucial in a relationship because it keeps you connected, keeps you bonded to someone. So if women would lean a little more towards the physical and say, he's cute. I call it the kissable test, right? It's not that he has to be like Boris Kodjoe, right?
Yeah.
But if you're sitting across the table from him at a date and you look at him and his energy and his vibe and his look would be enough that you could say, I could see myself kissing him. Like I could see myself kiss him, right?
Yeah.
Don't go there with sex and the whole shebang. I'm saying just don't imagine him without his clothes on. You don't have to do all that. I'm saying just kissable. Because that's, for a woman, that initial kind of litmus to say, is there an initial attraction that could be built on? Because women truthfully fall in love with what they hear and how a man makes them feel. It's not mostly physical. It's really how a man makes a woman feel. The problem is a lot of the time that a man doesn't even get that chance to kind of win a woman over because she's so closed off because he's not my type. Yeah. So now he can't get in her ear and get in her head to where all of a sudden you start looking real cute, when you start talking to him, give me
a chance.
That's
all I ever asked for, Rebecca.
Now, listen, because when I was single, I had a couple dating experiences where there was one guy I dated and for initial looks wise, I was like, I ain't feel, but he was smart. He was a businessman. Anything with business for me is like, we go together. You know what I'm saying? Like I love talking about business. And so our conversations he would get me with his conversation. Man, I kept dating him. And next thing you know, he's looking cuter and cuter to me because his whole energy and his spirit was so beautiful. And it was just like, we just vibed. And I'm sure people would look at us and be like, how did he? Real talk, right? Yeah. Like that's how you see, when you see people that aren't really, they're mismatched or not really looking that compatible physically, you're like, how did that happen? But I really liked him, right? But it taught me a lot about the female brain to understand that when we emotionally connect with someone, they immediately begin to become more physically attractive to us. Mm-hmm. So my husband's like the most beautiful man on earth to me, right? I'm like, ooh, okay? Like, that's my boo. But so if a woman would kind of lean a little bit more towards physical while lowering some of those expectations around education and finances, to say, I think easing up a little bit on such strict expectations around exactly how much money he makes or exactly how tall he has to be or exactly how much education he has. I mean, I've met so many men over the years that didn't even have high school degrees or a bachelor's degree, but they had 5 times as much money as me, right? Because nowadays with entrepreneurs and everything else, I mean, it's not even really about education. But there's a lot of young women or in women, period, who will just cut a man off the soon. Oh, he doesn't have a bachelor's degree. I can't date him. What? What does that have to do with us connecting and being able to have a great life together? It has nothing to do. None of that stuff matters. Yeah. But this also goes to my point why I think a lot of the time women and men are now getting more into their 40s before you find this. Like I was 39 when I met my husband, and I've been married previously, but I've never loved a man the way I love my husband. this is like the greatest love of our lives, right? Like that real life love, soulmate love. But we both agree we wouldn't have been ready for this in our 20s. You know, we wouldn't have been able to connect. Your priorities are so different when you're younger. So you're trying to fit your ideal model of how you want things to be. And so, but as you get older, what you want changes. What's really important changes. And so now it's like, well, you don't really need to have a booty like J-Lo. You know, maybe if it's just a little bump, you know, because she's sweet and she's cool and she's fly and she's smart and maybe a little bump is good. You know, I could deal with a little bump. You know, I mean, but real talk though, right? Because a lot of the time men get those little things that they say does it for them and like they gotta have that. I had a male client, you guys. He was big. He liked big booty Judies. I mean, big booty Judies.
What are you looking at?
He was stuck on big booties, and he couldn't. And he, you know, it was like he had this appetite. Yeah, right. That's how he's right. Right. You're just looking right at him. Like literally, it was like his thing, and there was just no getting by it. He couldn't get over it. But yet he would pass up so many really great women. And the big booty Judies weren't good for him. Like they
aren't.
Because of their bodies, they get a lot of attention from men. So now there's a level of entitlement. There's a level of expectation and high maintenance there that hasn't been earned. True. It's just about body. It's just about looks. I mean, real talk. We know this is real, you guys.
We do know it's real.
So then you could be like this really nice, great guy, but big booty Judy's used to dating athletes. And she's used to dating men with money, and they're tricking off and, you know, and throwing money at her. That almost happened to me in Atlanta when I've been here for 15, 16 years. In my 30s, you know, I started dating after I got divorced, and men do the absolute most.
Oh, wait, please explain.
Yeah, for the female listeners, y'all, I understand. It's like I started dating, no lie, and the men, I mean, when they were really trying to get you, like really get you, they will do the most. They're trying to fly you here, wine and dine you, trips, I mean, clothes, shopping. I met this one man. I hadn't even been talking to him a week. This is back before you remember when emailing money first came out? Do you remember like how you can quick pay? Yeah. This is back before the apps, you guys. Okay. This is when like with Chase Bank you could email and send money to people, right? I get this email. It's like 3 G's. And I'm like,
ladies, if you want to send me 3 G's.
No, literally, no lie. And I mean, we'd only been talking like a week, but he had flown back in town. He was out of town on business. He flew back in town just to have our first date with each other. He was crazy about me on the first date. And he literally sends me an email and sent me like 3 G's like a few days later and was like, I want you to just spend this on you. I don't spend it on the kids. Just
we making people that.
And literally, and listen,
not yet.
that had never happened to me, you guys, right? I've been married most of my life. Yeah. I didn't know about this single life. You know, I was like green, you know? And I'm like, this is what? You know, and of course, I really start trying to give him a chance and start trying to date him because, you know, you get it. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like.
It's like an expectation.
Yeah. So I date him. That doesn't end up working out. I date another guy, ex-athlete, every kind of imaginable luxury car, multiple properties.
Oh, so we know this athlete.
You know, flying around, right?
Yeah.
So. That wasn't my lifestyle, but yet I'm hanging out with him. And so now you're in these houses, you're in these cars, you're on these flights, you're doing all, and then the part of me that's the God, right? The spirit inside of me, I was really liking him. I was really digging him, right? But then I'm like, wait a minute, you know, because they shine you on so quick, you kind of can lose focus on what's real or what's important. And I start asking questions, right? I'm like, so, you know, where's this going? What did And I didn't like his answers, right? And I was like, no, this ain't going nowhere, right? This is not what I'm looking for. And I broke it off with him. not that we were together like boyfriend and girlfriend, even though that's definitely how it felt. What I really began to realize is there's probably 9 other women just like me that he's doing this with. And this little bit of money or whatever he's doing with me is nothing to him. When people have money,
ain't tripping if you got it.
Exactly. Like the $3,000 from the
like
dude,
$30.
that was nothing to him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes as women, when you're not used to that, guys, can you imagine being a young lady and men start treating you this way and doing these kind of things? You now start to have these levels of expectation. I'll never forget, after the athlete guy, I was on the phone with my guy friend, the player dude, right? He was like my best guy friend, right? Yeah. And I was like, I had gone out on a date that night with a guy who was like an engineer and a professor. I like smart guys, right? And so, he was like, oh, how'd the date go? And I was like, it was okay. And he was like, what, you don't sound too excited. You didn't like him. I said, well, he drives a Ford Explorer. And I was like, he seems like a nice guy, but I'm just not really feeling it. And he was like, what did you say? I said, he seems like a nice guy. He said, no. Before that, what did you say about what he drives? Yeah. I said, he drives a Ford Explorer. And he was like, Rebecca, that's not you. He's like, he stopped me dead in my tracks and was like, no. And he checked me so hard and was like, that is not you. That I've never heard you talk like that before. You've never been like that. I don't want you to be like one of those women. It was like that big brother almost kind of checking you for a second. And if he hadn't done that in that moment, I wouldn't even have realized that I was slipping over that slope. I mean, real talk, we get corrupted, and it's because the men come on so strong. And next thing you know, that level of treatment or that level of lifestyle was becoming an entitled expectation that I was putting in place. I mean, I see it a lot with men because of money. Mm-hmm. Because you've got the guys who have been nerds, who were, not popular in high school and college, who didn't get the girls, but they were smart. Right? Now they're coming into their late 20s and 30s. That tech done popped off, that companies popped off, or the Endeavor, whatever, right? Or their corporate, aspirations have come to fruition, and they're doing really well. And now they don't have the social skills, right, to be able to navigate women. It's not like they learned really how to do that. But the success and the money is there, and that attracts certain types of women. Mm-hmm. And so now they get corrupted because now this money now gives them access to women that would never even give them a second look if it wasn't for status. Mm-hmm. And they get messed up too, and they get hurt because, now they say, I just want a real woman, and a woman that's going to love me. But yet now you want someone who looks like a fitness model. Mm. But who would, and I would always ask men that, if it wasn't for status or money, who would genuinely like you for you? To where if tomorrow everything was gone, who's going to be in that studio or one-bedroom apartment with you and waking up looking at you, loving you for you and grateful for you?
I've been saying this for you.
But most oftentimes, truthfully, that's someone who is very much on your same level. And men and women don't really like that. Everyone's reaching higher than who they are or where they are at currently.
How do you know your level?
I would say it takes a lot of brutal honesty, right? Look at your own financial status. Look at your own credit score. Look at your own looks. My husband and I, when we met each other, it was very comparable. We fell in love, in the middle of recovering from bad divorces. He was probably about 10, 15 pounds overweight. I used to only be about 10, 15 pounds overweight, right? Like we were very comparable. I mean, very much on the same general level, right? And we fell in love and in spite of things not being perfect in each of our lives and saying, okay, but we genuinely love each other for who we are. Now, of course, more money comes and more everything comes and you're great, but you love the person you're with because it wasn't built on status and money and, image and all of that stuff. So truth be told, I think men need to be needed. Like, at the end of the day, I think that what works for most men, and this is why things are so difficult now, is that men still need to be in a position where they are provider, protector, priest. They're covering. Men are built to lead. They're built to be dependent upon. There's an innate need you guys feel. You never feel better than when you are needed and you're helping in some capacity for those that you love, that you are doing for them, and they rely on you. And I believe after this next book I write, I'm probably going to end up writing a book that's about marriage because, like I've mentioned, it's been an adjustment for me, right? My husband pays 90% of the bills. And the money I make, we use as investments and goes into savings. But I believe that that's kind of difficult for women nowadays, you guys, right? Like most women are going to struggle to say, we're going to really live on your income, which means our lifestyle is on your level of your income. But that innately makes a man feel like a man, right? Yes. My husband is like, I'm the man, right? And then it also, I have an innate need to be protected. Women have an innate need to be provided for. And so there's an innate need that's met for me. But if I'm acting like Superwoman and independent, like I don't need him, then my need's not getting met and his need is not getting met either. Mm-hmm. So what's difficult nowadays is that women are making so much money that now the average man, I think, with a bachelor's degree makes like $50,000 a year. Average. Which means these expectations that women have that men should be making six figures. Yeah, maybe if he's like 45.
Yeah. But
in your 20s and 30s?
Yeah.
That is not your average. It's not even your average 45-year-old, guys. Mm-hmm. It becomes difficult in these scenarios for men to be able to be men and women to be women, because even though our society and culture has changed so much, the needs we have innately as men and women haven't changed so much. Chris is just shaking his head like, I don't even know what to say.
Nah, that's good. I mean, I know feeling like this. A lot of knowledge, a lot of things to think about. I don't know. I mean, just like being around certain events that we've been over, just looking in a room full of women that just like, they just want to be loved, you know?
They do.
And if sometimes I see what some of the speakers be saying and I see their reactions, and it breaks my heart. Yeah. Like sometimes it's just like, dang, like that is true. I do that. Or yes, this guy has hurt me, and vice versa. And it's just like, man, like the need for love is so real. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you know, I'm trying to like, and we're trying to get like people as much knowledge as they can possibly get, because we need it, you know. And I don't like seeing that room full of women just like, ah.
Well, I think the majority of time, men and women friend zone their perfect, the person that would be practically perfect for them, the person that loves you and loves you for you. And a lot of the time that person gets kind of friend zoned. And
because they don't look good enough?
Because the physical, maybe it doesn't fit exactly what you imagine for yourself physically. Or for women, it's the finances and, you know, kind of the status and all that stuff plays into it. But your best partner in life and who's going to love you is going to be your best friend. Yeah. You know? And
how do you balance that with, I'm sorry for cutting you off, like how do you balance that with like sexual attraction? Because it's like, obviously, like Chris is one of my best friends, but I'm not sexually attracted to Chris, you know? Like John Mark's one of my best friends. But so like you said, like a part of it is a sexual attraction. Mm-hmm. So if there is a woman who's like, yeah, she can't be your best friend, but there's just nothing there. It's like looking at a man.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Okay, cool. Just
do not try to make it be there if it's not. You need chemistry. Yeah. You do. But a lot of the time, what people do psychologically is close something off in their mind and not even give it a chance. And especially when it comes to women. A lot of the time they can have this guy that's like their best guy friend and they're just so closed off to it. No, he's not my type. But the moment you kind of crack that door open, they start to see him differently and see him in a different light. I can't tell you how many women I've known over the years who end up marrying their best friend. And they're so happy because this guy is really perfect for them, you know? But when I met my husband, like I'm telling you guys, on the first date, I'm looking at him like, you cooking? Right? Like, okay. Yeah. And that goes a long way. So guess what? I'm not going to be quite as picky about finances. I'm not going to be quite as picky about baby mama and his credit score, or because at the end of the day, I like who I wake up to every morning. I wake up looking at my husband like, ooh, I get to wake up to you every day. Yeah. I really like who I wake up to every day. We really vibe and we have fun. We have fun doing nothing. Yeah. We have, our first dates were like picnics and like ice creams and you know what I mean? We just had fun together. And if you've been dating a lot, I had dated a lot. That's how I became a relationship expert. I just went on dates. I listened to men, right? And that is so precious. It is so, you can't it's priceless. If you just genuinely like someone, you like their energy, you like their smile, you like being around them, that's the kind of foundation you can build with somebody. Like at the end of the day, you can get money together, right? You can build your credit together. All those things you can do whatever you set your mind to do, especially as a couple. Two are more powerful together. You can do whatever you want to do. It's more important that the chemistry, the love, the connection, the likability, the fun factor is there, because life is hard enough. You're out here trying to make this money, working, your parents getting older. You're going to deal with a lot of stuff as you get older. And it's like your partner needs to be someone who makes that a little easier as you're going forward.
Man, there's been so much wisdom and so much great knowledge provided for us. So we want to be respectful for your time. So if there's a message in closing that you would like to give men and women that you've learned from your years of not only coaching and encouragement, but also from your own relationships and your own marriages, what would be some of your best tips of being able to find the right person to spend your life with?
I would say work on yourself. Be the happiest version of you that you can be. Do what you love. Be fulfilled personally. Then as you vet and qualify and meet people, you're entertaining people through dating, determine whether that's a fit for who you are and where you're going. If you could see yourself enjoying life with this person, give it a chance, right? But give each person a chance as you get to know them, instead of feeling like it has to meet so many different expectations based on things that are not real. At the end of the day, my husband and I wake up to each other every day. We go to sleep with each other every day. And the outside world doesn't really matter because it's just us. Because at the end of the day, you only have each other. It's us against the world. And that's the kind of ride or die love, the type of connection, commitment that you want, is to be able to go through life with somebody that you know genuinely gets you, understands you, and loves you, which means that there's an element of friendship and love, unconditional love, that comes into that in the same way you have for your friends and family, right? Not just friends, but family. We don't just write people off. When we love them, and especially when they're blood, you don't just walk away, right? You are there for the long haul. You're there to make it work. And if we can approach love and relationships and from that perspective to open ourselves up to love on that greater level, I believe that our romantic relationships would be, much deeper, much more fulfilling.
That's awesome.
I want that.
So, Rebecca, where can they find you at? Where can they reach out to you and connect with you at?
I am Rebecca Lynn Pope on everything. You can just Google it and you can go from there. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, everything. Just Rebecca Lynn Pope.
That's awesome. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Welcome.
Just so much wisdom, guys. Yes. Remember how we get down the podcast, guys. Make sure you go to Instagram, Twitter, wherever you can. Access Rebecca. Send her a message. Let her know what about the podcast stood out to you guys. As always, leave a review on iTunes to let us know how you're really enjoying the podcast. And Chris, I enjoyed myself today.
No, it was really good, man.
She was amazing.
One of my favorites. Man. One of my favorites for sure.
So as I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's your boy Hafiz.
Chris, the star of the show, baby.
And we are joined by
Rebecca Lynn Pope.
And we are the roommates, guys. As always, guys, don't forget to reach out. We love you. We love you. Love you. We see you on Thursday on Patreon. Ooh. And adios.